from South Florida, Marc Winning Picks Lawrence. And now, let's get it on!
Against the Spread Winning Picks with Marc Lawrence.
Hey everybody, welcome back once again. This is Marc Lawrence, and we're all set to go against the spread for a big Southeast Conference football preview show here with our panel of experts, our ProLine experts, Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas. Andy, how are you doing these days in these sweltering days in Vegas?
I am doing wonderfully, everybody. And in fact, today, it's July 24th, exactly 6 weeks until the Thursday night kickoff to the 2025 NFL season with the Eagles hosting the Cowboys 6 weeks from today. So that's 42 days and counting.
You know, it's strange you mentioned that, but our Playbook newsletter, we send a lot of them to prisoners all around the country. And they make up a big base of our newsletter subscribers. And one of the prisoners tells me he marks down every day. There you go, Jim. Thank you.
This is great. This is a great book, by the way. Great book.
Yeah, Jim just got it. I got kudos from him, and I thank him.
Yep.
That
Thank you, Mark.
The prisoner I was telling you about was sent me a letter or a note, and he says, "Thanks, I like your stuff. I got your magazine, and I'm marking down the days. I'm counting them with chalk on my board every day until the season begins." And Jim Feist, who I just spoke with here. Jim, I'm going to welcome you to the show, the legend in Las Vegas himself. How are you doing these days?
I'm doing great. The temperatures in Las Vegas are under 100 for the next few days.
Ooh.
Andy and I are very happy about that.
That's really
Absolutely.
Nice. And what are temperatures in Asheville these days, Greg?
I woke up at 60.
60. Ooh.
Yeah. So obviously I actually stepped outside for a few minutes. Yeah, that's unusual, but it'll be hot this weekend. We'll hit 90, but it's not South Florida weather, so I'm happy.
Well, it is not South Florida. They don't need meteorologists down here in the summer. Every day you look at the weather forecast, it's the high 90, 90, 90, 91, 91, 90, 90, 90.
Unless there's a hurricane in the forecast.
Yeah, and it'll wipe it out for just a little bit, but but nonetheless. But I want to welcome all our listeners out there to what we call ProLine TV, our platform now. It's a new home for Playbook Against the Spread podcast, where Victor King will, by the way, be joining us on August 14th. You can mark that down for our AFC preview when we begin the NFL football previews. And as always, this is a free podcast to everybody. If you like to watch the show and watch it live every Thursday, you can do so at 1 p.m. Eastern on the ProLine TV network, or you can interact with us, ask questions or comments if you like. We'll be glad to do that, and we'll answer those questions or comments. And I also want to mention here that we'll be doing, before the football season begins, our Beat the Pros football contest. Plans are underway. We're putting it all together here. You simply have to join our Patreon platform to participate in our Beat the Pros contest. Just click on our Patriot app, link I should say, on the site, and you'll be eligible to compete against us, our panel here of experts, on the Beat the Pros all throughout the football season. And I also want to remind listeners out there that what we're doing here is not just our show here for our Against the Spread family, but also our platform is a big, huge, wide platform. And Greg DePalma, our producer extraordinaire, Jim Feist, Andy Iskoe, they're doing stuff almost each and every day. There's all kinds of information you can learn here on ProLine TV. Greg did interviews with senior writers covering Georgia Tech and Iowa State this week. On Friday, Greg's going to interview Zach Barnett from the Football Scoop, which, by the way, guys, was the name of the playbook before I called it Football Scoop, and then I renamed it Playbook. So it touches home with me a little bit, the Football Scoop, but it's a very, very popular site. Greg's going to interview Zach Barnett from there. They'll talk about the Pac-12, the college football playoff system, and even a little John Gruden talk, as I understand. Then next week on Monday, mark this down, Monday and Wednesday, Greg's going to be doing interviews with sports writers from Utah, Iowa, and Miami. And if you didn't catch his interviews earlier with beat writers from the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Tennessee Titans, you can check it out all online here. Next Wednesday, also, I'm going to run all this by you. There's a lot of activity going on here. Greg will be visiting with Matt O'Leary. He's the host of the Matt O'Leary YouTube channel, very popular channel, and they'll talk about the New York Jets. So if you've got green blood running in your veins, the New York Jets, you'll be want to sure you.
Sorry for you.
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I let you say it, Greg, because I know you have that green blood in your.
Yeah, but if you got green, if you have green blood, that means you also could be the Eagles. So it's not all that bad.
Yep. Or you could be Lou Ferrigno, you know.
Or you could be Spock.
And nonetheless, I'd like to ask all of our viewers out there to please hit the subscribe button and the like buttons down below. It means an awful lot to us. We'll keep you in the loop. And while you're down there, ring that bell. Like I say, we'll keep you in the loop with everything we're doing here.
By the way, one quick little side note. The other day, last Sunday, July 20th, was the anniversary of man walking on the moon, which, by the way, occurred more recently than the Jets won a Super Bowl.
That's a great timely fact. I love that fact. Wow, the man walked on the moon more recently than the Jets won a Super Bowl. Is the Jets only Super Bowl win the Joe Willie Namath one, Andy? Is that it?
That's the one.
That's the one.
That's the one that a lot of people believe saved the merger after the Packers won blowouts in the first two against the Chiefs and Raiders, and the merger was set. And then there was some discussion that, hey, if the Jets get blown out, and remember, they were 19-point underdogs to the Baltimore, at that time, Colts. And if there was another blowout, it might very well have been that the existing NFL would have said, these guys just can't compete with us. Let's call this merger off. We're giving away too much. So the Jets, and then, by the way, the Vikings followed up the next year by losing to the Chiefs. So that's sort of like when the Chiefs beat the Vikings in Super Bowl IV, that sort of legitimized the Jets win in Super Bowl III, meaning that the leagues were pretty much at a comparable level.
A little bit of history from the New York Jets, probably keen to most Jets fans, not so much to those of us who are not Jets fans. I happen to reside from Cleveland, and the big news today, I'll share this with you guys, all around the internet, is the Browns going to go heavily after Arch Manning, and the reason being they're going to go after Nick Saban as well. And the tie to all that is not only did Saban coach the Browns before, but Nick Saban and the Manning family are like tied at the hip. And he has a lot of influence with what happens with Father Archie, also Peyton, all the Manning. So the word is
Grandpa Archie.
Grandpa Archie, exactly.
Yeah,
so
as opposed to Arch.
Now, the question I got to ask you, Jim, if that's true, if that ends up being true, would that signify a dip in a lack of effort by the Cleveland Browns this year just to secure that number one pick, do you think?
I don't know that the players ever buy into that. I mean, and I don't think that the management will either, because Stefanski is a very good coach, and getting rid of him for anybody else, I think, is a downgrade. And especially you take a college coach after he's been out of football age and everything else. You know, the one thing I will say positive about the Browns, and I'm not necessarily a big Jim Haslam fan, but I'm going to say this guy does and is willing to spend a lot of money. He is willing to come out of pocket. He did it a couple times for these very bad choices he did at quarterback, and he's willing to do it again this year. And next year, if he can get a hold of Arch on the team. So, I mean, it's not for a lack of spending. It's just that they just don't seem to get it together somehow.
And by the way, just remember, players do not tank. It's management, probably at the insistence of ownership, if indeed they're playing for a top draft choice, management, and head down to the coaching staff. And again, there's job security involved, so there's a little trade-off there. But what it is that the team management and coaches put the players in a position not to succeed. Players are always out there trying, not just for their contracts, et cetera, but also injury concerns as well. If you're not trying out there, if you're not going 100%, you are so susceptible to possibly career ending injury. So I don't like it when people say that players tank. They do not tank.
I agree.
Yeah, and for instance, last year when Winston came in and he was doing a pretty decent job, and all of a sudden they go, nah, let's put in Robinson. Let's put DTR in, this guy who can't play quarterback at all. Let's put him in for no reason at all other than, well, yeah, we have a much better chance to lose if he's playing than Winston. So.
Oh, and by the way, another way, does a player want to tank so that his job is in jeopardy?
That's crazy.
He could be the great draft pick that could take his job.
Well,
Common sense
Winston's
here,
interception rate was like off the charts. I think they had to make a move. You know, he was a spark to begin with, but
he likes completing passes. He just doesn't care who it's to.
he doesn't care who. Exactly right. He doesn't care who catches him. But let's stay with the Nick Saban talk, where he did coach at Alabama. Open up our Southeast Conference preview with the Crimson Tide this football season here. Caleb DeBoer disappointed a little bit last year. I wouldn't say a little bit. Alabama fans think it was terrible last football season because they didn't win a national championship. That's what they're all about in Alabama. But all 4 of their losses.
They also didn't win double-digit games for the first time in like forever.
Yes, exactly. 9-4. All 4 losses came as favorites. That's the most times they've lost as favorites in a season, 4 times since 2000. It's been 25 years since they've done just that. DeBoer is going to look to turn this football program around this year. I believe he's got the makings to do just that. He's got an offensive line and 13 defenders back that have over 200 snaps in their careers with Alabama here. And I like the makeup of this football team. They have 10 national championships. I think it's a big bounce back year for Alabama this year. Jim, what do you see for them in their first game this football season? I don't know if your line is available there or not.
I have a line here. It's I don't know how accurate this is, but it's 31.5 points over Western Kentucky.
Wow. Sounds like a basketball line.
Well, you when you're talking 31.5 points, all you got to do, how many points does Western Kentucky have to score? Maybe 14? No, that's probably not. 21 they'd have to, and they're not going to do that.
No, they do average they're one of the larger, higher scoring group of 5 teams, but likely not here against Alabama. Andy, what do you think happens to the Tide this year?
Well, as I normally do when we take a look, their season win total is 9.5, the last that I saw, with a little bit of a shade to the over, -15 on the over, -05 to the under. And as I do at these games, I like to take a look as far as what games are they likely or quite possibly could lose. And when I look at their schedule, really the only road game that I can see them certainly being tested and possibly lose would be the game, I believe it's on the 27th of September at Georgia. As far, and what do they play? Florida State, I believe. Is that one of their early games?
Yeah, that's not an easy game either, the Florida State game.
That's the one. But I didn't see, when did they play Western Kentucky? I didn't see them on the schedule, but I do see Alabama favored by 13.5.
Well, Western Kentucky, they're favored by 31.5.
When are they playing them?
That's the first week.
You mean the short week? Oh, because I'm looking at Florida State on the 30th, which is week 1, not week 0. So in any event, I don't think they will lose to Florida State, even though there are expectations for Florida State. And then at their home games, Tennessee, LSU. I know people like Oklahoma. They have to go 9-3 to lose. And I think DeBoer, his first season, got used to the atmosphere, got used to the expectation, got used to the personnel, did some recruiting. I'd be inclined to look for Alabama to go over the 9.5 wins. Don't know how strong a play it'll be, but I certainly can see them. The only loss I can, and it's not, and they can beat Georgia. They can win at Georgia, but that would probably be their toughest game on the schedule. Tennessee lost a fair amount from last year. LSU is always strong, but I can't see them losing 2 games at home, which would most likely be Tennessee and LSU. If indeed they also lose at Georgia. So I think 10-2 is realistic, could even be better.
Yeah, I agree with that, Andy. And especially because, again, look, I think the Auburn game on the road could be very tough. They've been very close recently with Auburn. It's a road game. It's a rivalry. They do open with Florida State, by the way. That one is on August 30th. But that's not going to be, I mean, we saw what happened to Florida State last year. So I can't imagine all of a sudden in week 1 against Alabama, they're going to have this like a great, homecoming of sorts. So yeah, I don't think that'll trip them up. So I agree with you. I think the Georgia game and maybe one of those 2 home games that you talked about, and maybe
Tennessee,
Auburn.
LSU.
Yeah. So I think 10 wins is reasonable. They don't get 10 wins. I'm not sure if DeBoer will be here in 2026. But the thing that does concern me is they go from the quarterback situation comes down and now to a very young, inexperienced Ty Simpson. And nobody really knows what they're going to get out of this kid. So that's really what's going to determine whether or not Alabama is a true 10-win playoff team.
By the way, it's North Alabama that Western Kentucky plays on the 30th.
This site has it misprinted.
What site are you looking at, Jim?
But the interesting part of, can you hear me?
Yeah.
The interesting part of this Alabama line is it has actually been bet down.
The Florida State game?
Yes.
What is it?
It went 12.5, and I'm seeing 11.5. So as well.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
Is that neutral, Andy?
No.
It's at Florida State.
Okay,
and let me see here. I'm showing a lot of 13.5. I think the 11. You know what the 11.5 may have been the advanced line, because I think a lot of the lines we're looking at for week 1 right now are the lines when they really opened it up. Although I'm looking at the Don Best screen at the Westgate, and the line did open 13.5 back on June 28th. So the 11.5 may have been one of those early lines that they put up possibly back in like March that they took limited action on. I'm
seeing 11.5 at Bet365 right now. I'm seeing 13.5 at Caesars and 13.5 at MGM. So there's a difference of opinion here. There's a little bit of a fight with their money out here.
It looks like most of them have 13.5, except maybe just that one.
I think Bet365 could be just a little bit slow in their reporting, Jim, being an offshore book as opposed to a legal U.S. book. That's only my guess. I don't know.
Maybe it's an alumni from Florida State that likes the dog.
There you go.
By the way, when you said 31.5 for that Alabama before, that's probably what Western Kentucky is favored by over North Alabama.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's definitely a misprint on the screen for sure.
One thing we know for sure, guys, Florida State will have to score 17 points in this game if they plan on winning the football game, because Alabama has won 112 games in a row in which they've held an opponent to 17 or fewer points. So that'll be the task at hand in that football game, at least for Florida State. They're going to have their hands full, no doubt about it. Let's move on here now. Alphabetically, we're going to go over to Arkansas. And this is a team coached by one of my favorite coaches, Sam Pittman, who's done, I think, a masterful job with this program. And if all you need to do is look back. 3 years ago, that football program, when he joined the program, they had won only 8 games in their previous 3 years. Since he's arrived, he's won 30 games since 2021. He's the man for the job at Arkansas. And he always plays under the radar, per se. I like what they've done with him since Houston Nutt was with the football program last. Looking at what he's got coming back this football season here, you might say they're a little bit light with returning starters, but they rank number 45 overall in returning production. 6.5 wins for the over-under. Andy, do they get the over or the under?
Yeah, see, I'm showing at Circa, I'm showing 5 wins, minus 120 on the over. And I'm just wondering if they can get to 6 wins. I think Pittman came in with a great expectations initially, had some early success, largely with players he inherited. And I'm just wondering about the recruiting. The recruiting numbers are pretty good as far as the rank goes, but the performance from those recruits has not been all that yet. Again, looking at the schedule, I'm trying to see games that they could lose. Now, Ole Miss without Jackson Dart could be down this year. That's a road game early in the season for Arkansas, so maybe they could win that one. I don't expect them to win at home against Notre Dame. They're probably not good enough to win at Tennessee. They can't ever seem to beat Texas A&M. I'd have to, if it's 6 or 6.5, I would definitely look under. At 5, it's probably a no play, but even then, this program has really gone downhill. They've never really had great success since moving over to the SEC from what at the time I guess was the Big 12 or the Big 8, maybe even back then, because I think it was like the early 1990s. So we're talking about 32 years ago that Arkansas moved in there. So I'm not optimistic. I hope this 5 is a mistake that I'm looking at, and I hope I can get 6.5 because I'll be looking under.
Greg, do you see DraftKings what they show for their total?
For the win total?
Yes, for Arkansas.
I could check that out. Yeah, in the meanwhile, as I'm trying to look that up, it quite possibly could be because their schedule, as you were alluding to, I mean, it's a tough schedule. Once you get past those first 2 games, if things, even at Memphis, maybe because Memphis lost some really big-time players from their program, maybe that'll help out Arkansas out, even though it's a road game. But they have a tough schedule. The good news is they bring back Taylor Green, and at quarterback, and we all know how important that is at the very key spot. And he's dual threat, so I think that's something that'll be good for them. The over under I have is 5.5. So I do have 5.5 plus 110, under 5.5 minus 130 at DraftKings. And look, I will say this, and I agree with you. I think he's done a really good job. The problem is, when you get these coaches, we've been doing this long enough. When a program is not doing well, and then you bring in a new coach, and he gets the team to respectability, and he wins some bowl games, and his momentum, then all of a sudden, if a year or so they're stagnant, which Arkansas has been, then it's like, well, what are you going to do now? And that's exactly what's going on there. There's a lot of people actually who believe that he has to win. He actually has to get this team to a bowl, or else his job might be on the line.
Well, it could well be. He lives in the richest conference in all of college football, and they're not going to settle for mediocrity. Certainly, Jim, I didn't hopscotch past you. I just happened to notice that they're playing Alabama A&M in the first
yeah.
So.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. So I wasn't going to say anything.
Okay.
I mean, already I had the one misprint on the screen, having them 31. They're not even playing them. So now the next game, of course, is Auburn and Baylor. So that's a big game.
Well, tell me what you see for a line on the Auburn Baylor.
I'm looking at the DraftKings line. It's Auburn 1.5, but it's actually 1.5 minus 15. Auburn's minus 1.5 minus 05. So it's basically a pick 'em with the juice on Auburn, and the total is 56.5.
And that's Auburn on the road at Baylor. They're in Waco for that football game. I think there's going to be a lot of heat this football season on Hugh Freeze from Auburn here. This football program has had 4 losing seasons in a row, 4 7-loss seasons in a row, and they're going to take on 10 opponents that were in bowl games last football season here. It's a really, really exclusive neighborhood that they live in the Southeast Conference. I don't know what he's got on hand to be able to turn it around like this. I know his returning production is strong. He ranks number 21 in the country. But everything I read, Andy, in the offseason here, I'm reading about Hugh Freeze in golf tournaments. He's golfing. Sounds like a president of ours. I don't know if he was paying much attention to this football program or not. He must be a pretty good golfer. But
unless he was golfing with recruits or incoming freshmen.
Well, that could have been the lure. But what do you think, Andy, about this chances for Auburn this football season? Can they snap this 7-loss streak that they're on?
Well, the season total I show for them is 8 minus 110 each way at Circa, and this is as of the 18th of July. So we're talking less than a week ago, as far as these current totals are concerned. Again, Baylor won't be an easy win on the road. I do like Hugh Freeze as a coach. He's been successful, basically wherever he's been prior to this. He didn't inherit a very talented team. I think it's a team that under who was it? Brian Harsin underachieved compared to the talent level of the recruits. So it's basically was a rebuild program for Hugh Freeze. He's taken minor steps, although 5-7 last year, 6-7 the year before was a 6-6 season and a bowl loss. And I'm looking at the first 3 games. Well, they're going to get wins against Ball State and South Alabama, I think, in the first 2 games. Their road schedule, they play Mercer in one of those body bag games at the end of the season when everybody else is playing conference play. They play Mercer. Game? Yeah, body bag game. A money game for the visiting team, Mercer. But that's one of those 56-7, and the 7 comes on the fourth quarter for the underdog at Vanderbilt. Can they go 9-3 in conference? I don't think so. I mean, well, not in conference, but I mean for the season, considering the conference schedule they play. I would say 8-4 would be certainly an improvement over last year's 5 wins. So, you're looking for a team to improve after a couple of losing seasons. I would say 8-4 might be realistic, but you need to get to 9 wins for you to cash in over 8 tickets. So I would go under in this one, under 9, under 8. Excuse me.
Their schedule is tough. I mean, they have to play both Georgia, Alabama. Then they get the Baylor game to start the season. I think that game will dictate whether or not they have a shot to win 9 games. But keep in mind, again, as Andy said, 5 wins, 6 wins, and all of a sudden Vegas says 8.5. Well, that's because of 2 things. One, the schedule, even though there was like 4 really tough games, The rest of the games, actually, I think Auburn might be favored in. So it's one of those deals where if they can just pull off one upset, they'll have a really good chance. The other thing is I really like what they've added to the team. His quarterback play the first 2 seasons was abysmal. So, so Freeze brings in, this young kid from Oklahoma. So they have really high hopes for him. And they also brought in a ton of key guys that you want to keep an eye on as far as transfers to help on defense. And the defense was the strength of the team the last couple of years. So they're going to have to hope that those transfers pick up the slack, which I'm sure that they will. And they also add Eric Singleton at wide receiver from Georgia Tech. Very exciting kids. That'll help them out there. So, yeah, I think they're clearly a better team. Otherwise, it wouldn't be 8.5 in the SEC. They're a bowl team. But I agree with Andy. I think 8 wins, 9 wins, tops. But they've got to win that first one against Baylor to even have a shot at that.
The interesting part about this game, we didn't talk about it, opened 2.5. Auburn favored. And there's been nothing but money coming in on Baylor. And
I wouldn't be surprised if Baylor goes off a very short favorite at this one.
I agree with you, Andy. I think that's going to continue to keep moving that way. Remember, in Auburn's losses last year, 7 losses, they averaged only 13.5 points a game. They have to step up and be more consistent if they want to end up playing with the big boys here. And my main question I'm concerned about is, will Hugh Freeze have a tee time in order when he visits Baylor in Waco, Texas? Will he order up a golf game on the day they play the football game?
The alumni want to know if he'll be playing golf in the month of December.
Well,
no bowl game.
Maybe the tee time will be at halftime, so he'll only coach the first half.
Well, let's move over to the Florida Gators, guys. This is a football team that needed a 4-game win streak last year to avoid 4 losing seasons in a row. And if that would have happened, that would have been for the first time since 1935 through 38. So they've been really back on their heels, have they, at Florida here coming into this.
And by the way, if you remember, Florida was a horrible program until Steve Spurrier got in there.
Yes, he was. Yes, they were. So that, it takes you back that far. With those consecutive losses.
Losing streak, yeah.
Everything's going to ride here on the arm of sophomore quarterback DJ Lagway. He led him to that 8-5 record last year, as I mentioned, culminating in all those wins here. What do you see happening to this program, Andy? Do they continue to keep coming back, or will they take a step backward?
I'm showing their total here at 7.5. With the under priced at -25, the over +105. I think this team, with what it has coming back, has the capability to win 8 games. I'm looking at the games that they probably lose at LSU, at Texas A&M. They get Tennessee, Florida State at home. They get Texas at home. They do have a neutral site game versus Georgia. I'm going to say it, even though the NCAA doesn't like it, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party against Georgia to start November. And they also play at Miami in a big rivalry game for those two. So I can see this team, based upon the momentum they had. Napier came over with a great reputation from his previous spot. It's taken him a little time, but the team has shown some decent improvement. They were 8-5 last year. It did take that long win at the end of the season, but sometimes that's a sign that things gelled. It just took a little bit of a while for a team that was effectively rebuilding. So I would look, it's not going to be a strong play, but it would be certainly, if you're going to play it, it might be an opinion play on the over 7.5 for the Gators.
Yeah, what they're working against is a very tough schedule. And I definitely think they're going to be a better team. The question, again, is going to be quarterback. They've got a really good, talented young kid in DJ Lagway. He showed that he had some ability last year, but he's got a long way to go. So another year, this is his first year coming out as the undisputed starter. So this is important. Look, they're going to be better. They've got a lot of returning talent, as Mark said. So now the question is, though, are they that much better with that schedule? I don't know. I think this is one of those situations where the record won't indicate that they're actually a better team than last year.
Well, I like to look at indicators, guys, and I share this a lot on the show, but what Florida did last year is they're one of the rare teams that improved straight up and against the spread. They were 9-3 to the number last year, but they went backwards offensively and defensively, statistically. And that sort of lets teams take the field with an air of overconfidence, and they almost always play closer to what their stats were last year as opposed to what their record was. So there's no way in the world I'm looking at this football team to get over a total here. And Jim, I know it's Long Island that first game. I guess it's Long Island iced tea that will lead them to the world's largest outdoor cocktail party.
That first, yeah, definitely Georgia, 39.5-point favorite in that game.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
We're talking, Florida. You mean Georgia?
Florida.
Yeah, Georgia is opening against Marshall. They can't be that big of a favorite against Marshall. Well, maybe they can.
Yes, they are.
Georgia. I'll just mention before you start, Mark, this is the first time in a long time that Georgia's win-loss total is under double digits. They are actually at 9.5, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that seems to be very unusual for a team that's accustomed.
Well, one of the reasons, Andy, is this is the youngest team that Kirby Smart will have ever coached at Georgia here. It was just 4 years ago. He started the most freshmen in all of college football, and it usually pays off in spades 4 years down the road because they become seniors. Well, they're all.
By the way, how did he do in that year? Do you remember?
In which year?
The year when they started all those freshmen.
If I go back 4 years, I see them I'm looking at Florida Atlantic here. I got to bring them up in my my magazine here.
Of course, that might be a good indicator of what we could expect this year from a team that has built. I mean, look, they and Alabama and Ohio State, probably the premier teams of the last 5 years.
Well, he's crying uncle right now because he's saying he's so young. He's got so much work to do with this football program here this year. And that could be one of the reasons why. But 4 years ago, Andy, they won 14 games.
With the freshmen.
Yes, with freshmen. That's what really put Kirby Smart on the map, per se. I mean, he was there 5 years previous to that, but nonetheless, they did just that. But I understand why this total is what it is. It's still Georgia, and you can't discount this football program out at any point in time because he does what every team in football, he does better than what every other team does, and that's recruit players. But I think I was thinking about that, the analogy of how well you recruit, and that was the key to Georgia's success. I wonder what all that means in this day today of the transfer portal. Recruiting players. I think you just go out and plug and play with replacement players as opposed to recruits. We're going to find out a lot more about that. But Kirby Smart has more first-round picks, 20 of them, than he has losses, 19 with the Georgia Bulldogs. That's how successful his career has been with this football program.
And that's in what, 9 years? Yeah, 9 years. That's 10 years. Well, I talked about the schedule before, and you talk about breaking in young players. Well, and maybe Greg has the answer to this when he speaks as far as how many players they did lose to the transfer portal, because that could be indicative as well. Plus, how many they've gotten back. Because again, if you're a second stringer on Georgia these days, you don't have to wait around to become a starter. You can sit that first year and then go somewhere else. But if you look at Georgia's schedule this year, it's extremely favorable. They have 7 home games and a neutral site game against Florida. Road games. The third game, they have two wins at the start. Marshall and Austin Peay. Those are wins. So whatever youngsters they have will get that experience before they then go to Tennessee on September 13th. That could be a losing game. Then they host Alabama 2 weeks later. So they have a bye before the Bama game. Could they lose that one? Yeah, and I really don't see. They'd have to go 10-2. To win. And where are the 2 losses? At Tennessee, possibly at home to Alabama. I think they're still better than Florida in that neutral site game. It's a high number, but it's the lowest win total that they've had in a number of years. Actual win totals included, even in regular season, ignoring the postseason, because basically in the postseason, Mark, your book shows the number of wins overall, including postseason. Well, prior to the last couple of years, you didn't have that many games. You just had your conference championship and your bowl game before they did the 4-team playoff. So Georgia has a long history. I'd bank on Kirby Smart and his ability to bring his teams along. It's a high total, but not high compared to what we've seen. I think Georgia gets at least those 10 wins. I'm going over here.
Yeah, again, I think a lot's going to depend on just how much the rest of the conference is caught up, because they will, and they have in recent years. That's why the SEC is no longer the can't-miss cinch national championship conference anymore because of the transfer portal. They lost about a half a dozen key players, and nothing major. I mean, the major guy they lost was Beck, but they kind of moved on without him anyway. Yeah. But they lost most of their guys they lost besides Beck were on the defensive side. So 5 out of their top 6 guys lost in the transfer portal were on defense. This is what's going to happen at Georgia every year. They're going to lose guys because they don't want to sit and they don't want to play when they could play. They don't want to play part-time when they can play full-time. But the key once again is quarterback, because Gunnar Stockton, we saw him in limited action. We saw him in the playoff. It's a little unfair to judge him there. Probably going to be a decent quarterback, but I can't imagine he's going to be anything special. He doesn't look like that type of quarterback. So, look, I think basically they're going to win because they're Georgia, because they're still talented and more talented maybe than any team in college football, except maybe just a couple of teams like the big ones, including Texas, who they'll play again this year. But the question, I think the real question is will they be able to win a national championship again? And in that respect, they're 7-1. Which I just think at this point is a little too early for me. They're not guaranteed to be that type of team at this point. I want to see Gunnar Stockton play a couple of big games before I invest on a short price like that.
By the way, Greg, you mentioned something very important about the transfer portal and who they lost on defense. I wonder how many of the kids on Georgia actually stick around for that opportunity to get a starting role, because of the fact that Kirby Smart has had so many defensive players in the last few years drafted in the first or second round. And you might not get that kind of exposure and build that kind of reputation if you transfer out of Georgia.
Hey, Jim, did we ever iron out that the line against Marshall in this first football game?
According to what I'm looking at, it's 39.5.
Wow.
Now, Andy thought that was too high, didn't you?
One of the reasons is Marshall is the thinnest team. They're the Twiggy of all of college football this year as far as experience comes back.
39.
Yeah. 2 starters on both sides of the football. They rank 136th in overall returning production. So Georgia benefits that way from taking on a real green Marshall football team in that sense.
Mark, over the years, how do these cupcake schools do with these big numbers against I mean, you look at it and you say, "Oh, I'm going to take 40," but that may work in pro football, but it doesn't work in college football.
You know, the answer to that, Jim, is it's really subjective because it depends upon who those cupcake teams are. Are you talking a cupcake team from a group of 5, an automatic group of 5 team? And then if you do, are you including Boise State, Memphis in that group, or are you looking at the Toledos and the Ball States? But what I found mostly to be holding true to form is these Power 4 conferences sort of tend to roll past these guys in the month of September because they want to get out of the gate strong and they want to get their self-settled as far as at least the polls go. So, but you won't catch me laying these kind of numbers here. All that does is keeps me out of the football game.
Are there any angles of playing first halves? I mean, there's lots of different ways to bet these days. Have you ever found an angle of playing first halves opposed to playing a full game?
You probably asked that question to the wrong guy because I don't play any exotics at all. I don't play parlays. I don't play teasers. I just play them straight. So I really couldn't tell you. I wish I could. Maybe Andy can dig that up somewhere about, first half betting or first half wagering, because I know it's very, very popular these days.
I don't normally keep track of first half wagers, but my initial thought is that, if you go back and take a look at, you'd have to go back and take a look at these first half scores historically. I'm not quite sure where you could find it online. I'm sure probably there is somewhere, but there are some teams that have no problem getting up 35-0 at halftime and then, turn it over to the third stringers by that time, versus teams that may just give it a ball game for the first half. Maybe they're up 24-14 and then they outscore them 35-3 in the second half. So it's a case of being worn down. But I could certainly see some cases where, I could certainly see some cases where you might make a case for a big underdog depending upon the situation. It is. And also, again, you talk about these, really bad teams that you get these lines from. There's a difference, I think, between getting those lines, and now they have lines on FBS and FC versus FCS teams. And there is, it's different if you're an FCS team versus if you're, say, a group of 5 team, where usually there's pretty good talent. And especially with the transfer portal right now, you're getting more players who move down. We talked about it before a few weeks ago, and go to some of these group of 5 teams that strengthen the group of 5 teams, even though the team that loses them still is a very good team. The thing with Marshall, for example, you talked about the returning production. They've had a pretty solid program for years and years and years. In fact, I think they had 10 wins last year, if I recall. But they also have a new coach in his first season, and that could be a little problematic in this game.
Let's move it over to Kentucky, guys. One of my favorite head coaches. I got a lot of favorite head coaches. I guess I should make a favorites list of head coaches, and they're there as long as they win. When they lose, we pitch them out like garbage. But Mark Stoops, I've really admired for the job that he's done, largely because he had to recruit amongst all the big boys from the state of Kentucky rather than down deep south against the Alabamas and the Tennessees and everybody else in the Southeast Conference. And he's really held his own, and he's really turned this football program around. They started the most freshmen also 3 years ago, and they're all seniors this particular year. They are what I would call a mission team. They had a losing season last year, bowlers each of the previous 9 years, I believe, coming in here. Yep. It's all of what Mark Stoops is all about, bouncing back off of losing, disappointing seasons. He's got a sixth-year senior quarterback in Zach Calzada. And correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, did he not start for Texas A&M?
Yeah, he began his career there, and I think he was actually part of I think he was started when they had a big upset against Alabama, but then he transferred to FCS, Incarnate Word.
Yes.
Came back to Auburn, hasn't played particularly well there, as you know. Auburn hasn't played particularly well offensively, so now he's getting another shot.
Well, he's just like Cam Ward. They both quarterbacked at Incarnate Ward, and they both put up monster numbers, 40 touchdown passes. So, he's got that DNA in his blood per se, and I think it's going to help this football team this year.
Well, they're playing Toledo. That's not too far away from Kentucky and Ohio. They're pretty close. They're neighbor states, and they opened 11.5-point favorite, but now we're down to 10.
Wow! I've even
Against
seen some
Toledo?
9.5s out there. Yeah.
Well, that's not showing a lot of respect at all for a Southeast Conference team, who I can assure you is going to come with everything they've got this year, and I believe they're going to be a better team this year than they were last year. Andy, how do you see the Wildcats faring this year?
Well, let me ask you this question, because you talk about teams and they show improvement on both sides of the ball. I assume that you use yards per game as the determining factor.
Yeah, the barometer is total yards offense, total yards defense.
Well, if you look at last year, they showed minimal improvement. I think 1 yard per game on offense. And, they went down a little bit on defense. I had it the wrong way. Right. But they were a 4-8 team, but their stats show that it could have been closer to a 6-6 team, and maybe even a 7-5 team when you consider that they played, in an FCS team that the statistics probably built up a little bit. So I'm actually looking over in this one. The total in this that's circa 4.5 with the over -120. I can see 5 wins on this schedule. I think home win against Toledo is especially coming off of the down year last year. Home wins over Toledo, Eastern Michigan, Tennessee Tech late in the year. So that's 3 wins right there. Then on the road, can they win? Well, Vanderbilt is a winnable game on the road. Auburn is a winnable game right now. I don't know about South Carolina this year. I don't think but I think this team can go at least 5-7, and maybe even, and because they are a mission team, Mark, you're looking for them to be 6-6 if indeed they are a successful mission team.
That would be a huge success if they can go to a bowl with that schedule, and they better beat Toledo, because if they don't beat Toledo, it's going to be a long season. They do have a real tough schedule. Even those games you're talking about, Andy, I think they're going to be a dog in all of them. So, look, this quarterback, he's going to have to play a lot better than he has recently. And again, he played for the SEC. So that shows you he's not at his best against the best. So I don't know. Look, I agree with you, Mark. He definitely deserves a little bit of a cushion, couple of year cushion. I think he deserves that. He's earned it. They don't want to get rid of him. There's none of that talk. But hopefully, they'll get someone in there at quarterback, a young kid, and they'll be able to get back on track sometime soon.
Well, that defense you talked about, Andy, for Kentucky, they actually held 4 opponents to season low yards last year. And that's really, really, you don't find too many college football teams that will do that. They can claim that we held you to a season low, and they did that, and they said that 4 times last year. So if Stoops builds on that and finds an offense here, I'm going to play this football team to go over the total, because I like Mark Stoops, and because also they happen to be a mission team this year. Let's move it over to LSU. The Tigers from Baton Rouge, they come into this football season. They're going to take on 10 teams. I said 10 teams that were in bowl games last year. Very, very salty schedule for LSU. We probably say the same thing about every team in the Southeast Conference, because they're playing one another. The best thing about, I think, LSU this football season is their quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, whose dad is a quarterback guru, and he's going to be one of the early favorites here in the Heisman Trophy this particular season here. If he lives up to his potential, he could be the number one pick in the whole draft next year. They've got a fifth-year senior and an offensive coordinator in Joe Sloan coming back for his second football season here. I don't know where I'm going with this LSU football team. Andy, are you seeing 8.5 wins for the total on this team?
I am showing for LSU 8.5 with the over minus 135, the plus 115. I believe they opened, Jim, at Clemson, 3.5-point underdogs with Clemson being favored there.
That is correct. It opened 3. I see bet 65, 360, 2.5. Everybody else looks like 3.5. That's a tough game. Clemson is not a pretty good team.
A very good team they're going to be this year.
I just wonder, with my mindset of LSU, considering the way that they opened last season out here in Vegas, being upset by USC. So I think they want to get an opportunity to start. Well, obviously they want to get they want to win against a quality opponent. USC wasn't such a great quality opponent last year, as it turned out. Clemson certainly is expected to be this year, so that could be a tough one. I still think that given the line, 8. It's interesting with 8.5 because I noticed 8.5. And they are to win the SEC championship. They are plus 750. And I think there are a couple of other teams that are also 8.5 that have much longer odds. So the odds makers, as far as the championship odds for the conference, giving LSU a lot of respect. And when you take a look at their schedule, 7 home games, the road games at Clemson, at Ole Miss. I think that's winnable this year, depending upon the improvement that they get at quarterback by that time in the season. At Vanderbilt, that should be a win. At Oklahoma, that could be a little tougher, but we don't know. And at Alabama, that one is usually a toss-up. But the rest of their schedule, you talk about the number of teams that made bowl games. They only played 2 teams, Ole Miss and Clemson, that had double-digit wins last year. And again, Greg pointed it out in his last statements about, they don't have great records, that many teams with great records, because the conference beats up on each other because it's such a deep conference, and it's shown by the fact that they got so many bowl teams last year. I would tend to look over the 8.5 because I could see 9-3 as being a realistic season for a team that is capable of winning double digits. The only loss that I would give them as I won't say a certainty, but likely, at Alabama, and I'll give Clemson and Oklahoma. I think they'll go 1-1 in those games. So there are the 2 losses.
Yeah, look, if they get 8 wins this year, Brian Kelly's in trouble. That's just it. I mean, they did not bring Brian Kelly in here to win 8 games. So they're focused on a national championship. They got to get to the playoffs. That means at least 9 wins. Again, as Andy said, those 3 road games are murderous. So you probably have to win at least 1 or 2 of those to have that big season because the schedule is just really tough. So, but also, Mark, like you said, they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the country. That goes a long way. Brian Kelly's a good coach. The defense is improving, and that's been their issue the last few years. They don't have that monster defense, but I will say this, and this is going to be the big bugaboo. This is what's going to dictate win or loss for them. It's their offensive line. There 4 starters left last year, and if you look at their depth chart, right now it's possible they will be starting all underclassmen, all 5 positions, sophomores, redshirt freshmen. That's a big ask in the SEC.
Well, you mark those things down, Greg, because if they happen to do that, when we visit and do their recap for them in 3 or 4 years down the road, those young underclassmen offensive linemen will be senior veteran offensive linemen.
If they stay at LSU.
Yes, if they stay there. Which is
always a concern now to keep in mind.
Yeah, especially in this world in which we live, this crazy transfer portal world. Let's move it over to Mississippi State, guys. This is a team that's also, like LSU, going to face 10 bowl teams this year. I think the best news for this football program this year was when Blake Shapen transferred in from to this football program here to Mississippi State from Baylor. He made some noise while he was over there. He saw an opportunity to come here and start this football season here. I don't know where I'm going to go with this program here because they don't show a lot as far as, to me, pedigree. They haven't had it. They've never had it. And I don't know why it's going to show up all of a sudden this year in this deep, rich conference that they're playing in this particular season here. Jim, they're opening up at Southern Miss. That should be a cakewalk. What's the number look like there?
Well, Southern Miss is going to. This is a big game for them.
Yes,
and they are
a redheaded stepchild game. Yes,
absolutely. Mississippi State opens 13.5. We're looking at 13, 12.
That's embarrassing.
I see 12.5 at MGM. I see 13 at Caesars. So it's in that range.
Now, by the way, it may be a big game for Southern Miss. It's also a pretty good game for an SEC team that went 2-10 last year. So, if the game will mean a lot to Southern Miss, it means even more to Mississippi State to get rid of what happened last year. Now, their win total for this year is a 3.5 with the over minus 160. I think minus 165 plus 145. They may have to reach that by the end of September, and the key game on the schedule for them to do that will be week 2. They open at Southern Miss. That should be a win. Week 3, they host Alcorn State. Week 4, they host Northern Illinois. Arizona State comes to Mississippi State in week 2. That may be the game because the rest of it is they were 0-8 in the SEC last year. They were 1-7 in the SEC the year before. I'm trying to think. Maybe the weakest team they play, according to last year's win-loss records, is at Arkansas, who was 7-6 last year. As far as that goes, all the other teams had 8 wins or more, including bowl games. So, and actually, they may have to get it by starting 4-0 because their week 5 game or game 5 is a home game, but it's against Tennessee. So. I'm going to go on the over 3.5. I don't like laying the big vig, so I'm not sure if I'm going to play it unless it comes down a little bit. But I think they're going to get the wins over Southern Miss, Alcorn, and Northern Illinois. Maybe they get Arizona State. Maybe Arizona State's going to be a little overconfident after last year's late season success. But then again, maybe they're also going to break through and win one of those SEC games, though. It's hard. The home games for LSU, for Mississippi State, home to Tennessee, home to Texas, home to Georgia. And then the rivalry game at the end of the year, Ole Miss. So it's going to be very difficult, but I would lean over simply because of that September schedule and the fact that second-year coaches generally show improvement. Not that that's difficult after going 2-10. And that suggests that at some point this year, they're going to pull a minor upset over maybe in Arkansas.
Well, that might be the epithet on their tombstone, that schedule you just laid out there, Andy.
Yeah, they're definitely going to be an improved team. There's no question about that. And they get Shapen back. And let's keep in mind, he was transferred in last year. He gets off to a pretty good start, and then he's out for the year. So he's back, and that's the key, because if he starts all season, and there was some games last year, if you looked at them, where there were about 3 or 4 games in the middle of the season with their young backup quarterback where they were competitive. So I think with Shapen back for a full season, again, that Arizona State game, as you mentioned, I think that's the key to their season. If they win that one, they're definitely winning over 3. And I would say this: I would never bet minus 160 on Mississippi State. Therefore, if I was going to take a chance, then I would do over 4.5. And I think that's not crazy to think that they could go 5 if I'm going to have much better odds at it. But yeah, I think this is an improved team. How much improved? I guess we'll find out, of course. But that Arizona State game, that'll be their game of the year.
And Mark, you're going to like, I would think you're going to be looking at places to play on Mississippi State this year, because at 2-10, they're going to be playing a lot of revenge games.
Well, as it seems to be their case every year, Andy.
Maybe they're in the wrong conference.
Well, they were 5-7, 9-4, 7-6 the year before, 3 years before. So 2-10 is a little bit of a very unusual for a program. Never been a great program, but they've been a pretty decent program for many years. They had Mike Leach and a couple of other coaches who had modest success with Mississippi State.
But he also didn't win a road game last year. I don't know where that's going to come this year either. We talked about that epithet per se.
But no, that's why those first 4 games, they should win at Southern Miss, but it's those next 3 home games that will probably decide if they can get the 4 or 5 wins.
Well, you want to talk about home games. Look at this Missouri schedule this year, guys. Lia Drinkwitz has really turned this program around. 21 wins the last 2 seasons, 10 last year. But what a schedule he was handed this year. 6 consecutive games at home to open the season. Half of his season is home to begin the season. He has to take advantage of something like that. He's probably got the players to do just that. But again, when you go from a 6-win team, as he did, a pair of 6 wins in 21 and 22, and then you win 11 and 10 games. There's a bounce going to come in sooner or later. I thought more of the bounce last year. It didn't happen, although they did go backwards. Note this, guys, offensively and defensively, even though they improved, or they didn't improve. They really went down one game, so it doesn't really technically qualify. I don't know what to do with this Missouri team here. I don't know if they get rich these first 6 games, Andy, or are they for real? You tell me about Missouri.
I think they've got a real good chance of starting 5-0, opening at home. No, those first 6 home games: Central Arkansas, Kansas, which was a losing team last year, Louisiana, formerly known as Louisiana Lafayette, South Carolina, which had a very good team last year, but they do get them at home, and then UMass. So by September 27th, which is the UMass game, they could be 5-0 after that game. Then they become 5-1, most likely losing at home to Alabama. Interestingly, their 4 road games are 2 back-to-back situations: at Auburn, at Vanderbilt. Don't know about Auburn because this is a good team that Drinkowitz has. They might beat, I think they beat at least Auburn or Vanderbilt, possibly both. At home, Texas A&M. They might lose that one. Mississippi State, we don't know how improved they're going to be, but they could win that one. And they end up at Oklahoma and Arkansas. Now, the total for them for Missouri this year is 7, with the over -15 and the under -105. I think Drinkowitz has shown the last 2 years. This is his 6th year, so it was actually his first 3 years when he struggled. Obviously the first season was the COVID year, 2020. 6-7, 6-7. The next 2 years, and both of them got him to bowls, and then of course bowl games the last 2 years. So he's done a nice job. So you might normally think that it could be a bounce back, but he's obviously building this program and took a team that his first couple of years did okay after the COVID year. I think 7's a pretty low number given the makeup of the schedule, and really when I look at the game, 8-4 is a win. So if they can afford 4 losses, maybe Alabama, maybe Texas A&M, maybe Oklahoma or Arkansas, the Oklahoma being most likely. They're both on the road. And maybe either Auburn or Vanderbilt, but I think they may be favored. Certainly at Vanderbilt, I don't know about Auburn. I think over 7 is one of the better plays out there.
Yeah, I think they're an 8-win team based on the schedule. That's it. But they are going to have a drop off at quarterback. Their quarterback, their veteran, is now in the NFL. They do bring in Prabula from Penn State. He made some, big plays when he needed to as the backup quarterback the last couple of years. Not that much of a pocket passer. He's more of a dual threat guy. They lose their star wide receiver. And so they lost a couple of guys on offense, but defensively they bring a lot back, and they're going to be strong defensively. And I think that should carry them. Plus, they got a winning culture there. And because of what they've done the last couple of years, I think that winning culture with that schedule should give you 8 wins.
Let's take a look at Mississippi down the road. The old Miss Rebels, Lane Kiffin, doing what he does best, and that's manipulating the schedule. He takes full advantage of schedules, and he also takes a big-time advantage of the transfer portal. He's called the beast when it comes to transfer portal.
You don't think Georgia State's going to give him any competition?
Well, how many points are you going to give me there, Jim? What's that number look like?
What do you want, 40 or 50?
40.
37 and a half.
37 and a half. No, thank you. He's a cripple shooter. Lane Kiffin is. He'll dispose of bad teams right away because he's all about rankings and stats and where his football team is going to go. But he's got a couple of things that they've got to overcome here. It's called a bad case of the nevers for Ole Miss here. They've never had a Heisman Trophy winner. They've never won a Southeast Conference title, and they've never been to a Southeast Conference championship game. So he's going to look to end one of those streaks here. He thinks maybe hopefully soon this year. He brought in an interesting quarterback here. His name is Austin Simmons, and he's got a rocket arm, and he's intelligent as all get out. He graduated from high school 3 years early, and he's on track to get his bachelor's degree in sports medicine by the age of 19. Wow. So they're going to be guided by a Manning kind of a quarterback, if you will. The smarts upstairs. He's also got the physicality, so forth and whatnot. What are we looking at for an over-under total on this team, Andy?
We are looking at Ole Miss 8.5, over -20, under even money. And again, looking at the schedule, it's a fairly favorable early schedule, although they do have some, rebuilding to do. Georgia State at home, then at Kentucky, home to Arkansas and Tulane. Then they host LSU. That could be a loss. Kentucky, don't know. It's early enough in the season that Ole Miss might be struggling a little bit. Washington State, that should be a win. Then at Georgia, at Oklahoma in back-to-back weeks. South Carolina, another one of the body bag games the following week, the Citadel. And then they close at home to Florida and Mississippi State. If Ole Miss can get off to a good start, and I believe they will, the way Lane Kiffin is able to generate enthusiasm. I mean, this is his 6th year, 44-18 straight up, about a 500 point spread record. I would tend to think that at 8.5, 9 wins, I think 9 wins is more likely than 8 wins. Although I don't know that I want to lay the price on that. So if it comes down, I might take a look at it. But certainly, as an opinion, I'd be looking over.
Yeah, I think they're a 9-win team. Again, he's going to have talent. We all know that. But the problem is you lose a veteran quarterback like Dart. They lost some other key players. And even if Austin Simmons is the real deal, it's still going to be at least a 1-season drop down. I mean, look, it's the SEC. History tells us they'll win games, and also history tells us they won't win the big ones. So I'm not going to buck that trend or attempt to. But they're good enough to win 9 games, and their schedule does have a good opening, as you said, Mark. It gives them a lot of opportunity to bolster that win total real early, and then hopefully keep them going.
Well, when it comes to looking at these football teams, especially when I was putting the magazine together, down in the dungeon in the offseason here, but one of the first things I tend to look for are which teams are going to be what I would call Vegas wise guy teams, the teams that the sharps in Vegas are going to matriculate to right away because they see promise, they see potential, and they want to get in on them before the betting public does. And I believe one of those teams this year is South Carolina, the Gamecocks.
Did we miss Oklahoma?
We did miss Oklahoma. Yes, we did. But let's do this. Let's stay on South Carolina, and sure, we'll revert back. Only because I don't want to have to say that again, okay?
By the way, you have 6 teams to do in 15 minutes.
Good to know.
Okay,
so we're staying with South Carolina here. The biggest asset to this team is obviously their quarterback, Lenora Sellers. Great potential. He'll be one of the Heisman Trophy favorites this football season here. And they improved so much last year that they invited the 4th most players to the NFL Pro Combine last football season. My warning sign for South Carolina is they faced more bowl teams than any team in the FBS this year. 11 of their opponents were in bowl games last football season here. You've got to navigate those waters, and you've got to look for a football program here. If you think they're going to improve, look at the sheets here. If it was John Hardoon, Greg, he'd be telling us, well, they had a 5 2 years ago. They had a 9 last year. Can they bounce this year? Probably so. I think there's going to be way too much expectation on this football team. They're going to be good, but I don't know if they can get to top that number to get to 9 wins. Andy, what do you see that total at?
I was going to ask Jim what the line is.
Do you think Mike Shula is going to do a hell of a job there?
You asking me?
Coordinator?
Well, I'm not a huge Mike Shula fan. I think he's, I don't want to say he's silver spooned, because he's a Shula. I don't know if he ever did anything that was remarkably good in his career, but he works with quarterbacks. And I don't know how much more he can improve Lenora Sellers here in this program here, but
the Shula that's actually doing well is the one over with the Rams. He's actually doing pretty well. Is that his son? I think maybe it's possible. I don't know, but he's actually doing better than this Shula. This Shula, like you said, Mark, he's just okay.
Yeah, he's okay, but they did show big improvement last year, so I think we have to give him credit his due this football season here. I didn't ask you, Jim. The first football game they're going to play is against Virginia Tech.
9.5 point favorite.
I'm sorry?
And it's at the Georgia Dome.
In the Georgia Dome. What's that number, Jim?
It's a 9.5.
Mercedes-Benz, whatever they're calling it now.
9.5. Okay.
Yeah.
It seems like a tall order here for a football game that's played on a neutral field, but that's just my first initial reaction here. Andy, what's your reaction?
Well, South Carolina, you talk about bounce backs, or flips. They improved last year, offensively by 69 yards per game and defensively also by 69 yards per game. That's a huge increase from for 1 year over a previous year. And they were 5-7 the year before, 9-4 last year. And apparently Vegas may be knowing something as far as that bounce back goes, because I was surprised. Their total this year is only 7, -135 plus 115. Wow. And looking at the schedule, Virginia Tech is a winnable game. South Carolina State and Vanderbilt at home next. So there's a couple of wins. They host Kentucky, probably a better team there. And again, you look at the quarterback, Coastal Carolina towards the end of the season. Can this South Carolina team, even with the schedule, well, the road games at Missouri, at LSU, at Ole Miss, at A&M, and then the Virginia Tech game. So they are playing, 7 home games this year. I think this team can squeeze out 8 wins. So I'd look over. Not sure I'm going to play it, but it would be certainly an opinion on the over here.
Yeah, I agree. And again, that's because they've got a quarterback that could actually either end up as a second-round draft pick or the number 1 quarterback in the draft next year. That's how talented this kid is. He's got to improve a lot of assets of his game. He's got a lot of Anthony Richardson in him, but he's got the extra year that Richardson didn't. So that's what he's going to have to improve and do the things that Richardson hasn't been able to do with the pros. Also keeping in mind that their defense, they lost a lot on defense. So they're going to score a lot of points, but I think they're going to give up a lot more points than they did last year.
Well, guys, I completely dissed Oklahoma, as you mentioned here. We skipped 2 teams past them. It's not that there's a lack of respect for the Sooners here, but I know one thing. Brett Venables is really on the hot seat of all hot seats this year. He won 10 games 2 years ago, another disappointing losing season last year. This is not what they hired him for and paid him the big bucks for, but he does have a lot of talent to work with this football season here. He's got 10 starters back overall, ranks number 10 overall in returning production. He's got 18 starters back this football season here. A lot to like and a lot to be expected from Oklahoma this football season here. Jim, I know there's no line in the Illinois State game, the opening game of the season.
No line.
So, Andy, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, for Oklahoma, the win total is 7.5. The over is plus 120. The under is minus 140. And I can understand why the under 7.5. Can this team go 8-4? Well, if they're 8-0 heading into their final 4 games, they will have achieved it. Now, how many of the final 4 games will they win if they need to? At Tennessee, at Alabama, home to Missouri, home to LSU. That's a brutal end-of-season schedule. Now, before they get to those 4 games, they have a game at South Carolina. They play Texas. I think that's in the Cotton Bowl. That's going to be a tough game. We don't know about Michigan and Auburn, who are 2 quality opponents that they face early. And even then, if they say they have six wins heading into that 4-game stretch, they'd have to win 2 of them. That's tough to play. Now, they do have a week off between the at Tennessee and at Alabama, and then the next couple of weeks, home to Missouri, home to LSU. I have to look under simply because of that late season schedule and the fact that there are losable games before you get to those final 4 games.
Yeah, I can't even believe I'm saying this because I'm not a Venables guy, but this is a good team. And if he does not get at least 8 or 9 wins, they should fire him. They brought in Mateer at quarterback. He has not had quarterback since he's been there. That's been the problem. There's no excuse now. This kid can play. He's a legit quarterback. And they bring in this kid Ott, a running back from Cal, a really big-time player there. So his offense is going to be loaded than it's been before. And he's going to always have a good defense because that's what his trademark is. So, yeah, if you can't get 8 or 9 wins from this team, it's time to move on.
Are Greg, you concerned about those last 4 games, though, Greg?
Absolutely. No question. But again, if they're going to be that type of team, then that means that they should be able to go wire to wire with Tennessee. They should be able to beat Missouri at home. And then, also they should be good enough to beat a team that they're not supposed to beat. So
what are we looking at?
That might be Tennessee. Greg?
Yeah, I could say that. Sure.
I'm sorry, guys. What are we looking at time-wise here, Greg? We got 4 teams to do.
Well, we have still Texas A&M, Tennessee, and Vandy, and we have 7 minutes before Andy's got a bolt.
Oh, that's a breeze. We can knock that out real quick here.
Okay.
Want to bet?
Want to bet? Yeah, that's what.
All right. Tennessee's opens for 12.5. They're 14 or 14.5 right now.
Against who is that, Jim?
They're playing Syracuse.
Okay. One thing to note about Tennessee, They averaged 10.1 points per game in the first quarter of their football games last year, which means they get out like a rocket. They bolt out of the gate and they don't look back. That's what got them to the playoffs for the first time last football season here. Not much in returning starters, only 13 on that, including both sides of the football here. Joey Aguilar transfers in from Appalachian State. He's got some big, big shoes to have to fill. Andy, where does the Tennessee Vols go this year?
8.5 wins with the under -155, the over +135. Home game to Georgia, at Alabama, home game to Oklahoma, road game at Florida. The other opponents, I think they'll be favored in all those games. I can certainly see Tennessee going 9-3. Don't know that they can get 10 wins, but I certainly think they'll get 9. They do open against Syracuse in Atlanta, so they'll probably have the more fan support there on the 30th of August. So I would look over at this one, especially at +135.
Yeah, the good thing is they only have 2 really tough road games. That's Alabama, Florida. And so it's a very favorable schedule, and they need that. They have a big drop-off at quarterback. Their offense lost a key players at running back, quarterback, receiver. They're just not going to be as good as they were last year. The good news is, though, they got their defense back pretty much, and so that will be better. Heupel's a good coach. They'll be a decent team, but they're not going to be the playoff contender they were last year.
Remember this, guys. They held 5 opponents to season low yards last year. That was best of all in college football. So the defense indeed did step up for Tennessee last year. The Texas Longhorns, thought by many to possibly be the best team in the country this year, and probably because of the Arch Manning situation going on with this program here. They rank only number 82 overall in returning production. They're going to face 9 bowl teams this year, including what might be the game of the year in the season opener when they go to the Horseshoe in Columbus to take on Ohio State. And right now it's an awfully short line for the Buckeyes in that football game, which confirms the love there is out there for Texas this football season here. Andy, does Texas step up and deliver the goods this year?
Well, their season win total is 9.5. The over is -65, the +145. So they have to go 10-2, and they have a very rough stretch in the middle of the season with 4 games away from home at Florida, Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. So that's the the Texas Oklahoma thing. So that's not a true road game, but it's not a home game. At Kentucky, at Mississippi State in 4 back-to-back games, and there are also 4 back-to-back weeks with no time off. Ohio State, I'm going to say, Jim, what's the line on that game?
The Ohio State is open 3, mostly 3. You can find 3.5. You might even be able to find 2.5. But
yeah,
that's a critical number. I mean, but there are some numbers.
I'm not huge fans of Sarkisian or Ryan Day. So I could see either coach losing this game rather than winning it as far as that goes with decision making. But they'll win their next 3 games by probably about 100 points combined. At the end of the year, they do have at Georgia and then their season-ending game against Texas A&M. Again, I'm not overly thrilled about Sarkisian. There's a lot of pressure on Arch Manning. I don't know if he's as great as they say. Obviously, he has the bloodlines and the genes. At 9.5, don't know that I would play it, but I might look under at that +145.
Yeah, that's a big drop off. Then again, that schedule, as you went over, it's a tough one. And if they beat out, here's the deal: if they beat Ohio State, they're going over. That's it. They're going over. If they lose, they still got a chance. But they beat Ohio State. They're going over. There's a lot of talent back as usual. He does a great job recruiting. How can you not? You got a great combination. Sarkisian is one of the better recruits out there, and Texas is just a recruiting, hotbed. And he's done a tremendous job recruiting there, and that's the reason why he's got competitive football teams. So there is talent coming back, but they did lose a lot of key guys from last year's team, including up front on the defensive line, also on the offensive line. So there'll be some issues there, but they're just too talented in my mind not to win 10 games. So I'd be surprised if they were a 9-win team.
Texas A&M, the Aggies, guys.
Who do they play after they play Ohio State?
Jim's looking let down.
San Jose, UTEP, Sam Houston, all at home. That's what I say.
I'd
make the over-under point differential for those 3 games 100, which is basically winning each game by an average of 33 points. It'll probably be somewhere around the lines in those games.
That'd be a great prop for Vegas to put up. What will the total spread on those games? Well, they can manipulate the line.
Yeah.
But
now, what will the margin differential be for those 3 games combined?
Exactly.
Especially if they lose to Ohio State.
Let's get over to Texas A&M, guys. Mike Elko didn't really win over the fans like he was expected to do when he was hired from Duke. He closed out the season 1-4 on a 0-5 ATS losing slide. That's not good news. He's coming back this particular football season, 8 starters on both sides of the ball, ranks number 7 overall in returning production. That's pretty strong. And if Mike Elko wants to win those fans' favor back, all he's got to do is perpetuate the streak that Texas A&M has going. They have won 11 years in a row in Game 3 of the season. Where are they in Game 3 this year? At Notre Dame.
Yeah. Well, they start the season off a 20.5-point favorite over UTSA.
Another stepchild team, yes. Andy? Aggie,
well, A&M is 8 wins for the season, minus 20 on the over, even money on the under. And that game at Notre Dame will be their only road game in their first 6. And B, of course, it's a revenge game for that opening game of the season last year. I would expect that they have a real good chance of going 5-1, given that loss at Notre Dame. Texas, San Antonio, Utah State the first 2 weeks, Auburn, Mississippi State, and then the one game that could be a loss, and that's a home game to Florida. Then they are at Arkansas, LSU, and Missouri in back-to-back weeks. They could win 2 out of those 3 games, LSU being the most likely loss. Host to South Carolina, host to Samford. And their season win total, as far as getting to 9 wins, may come down to the Texas game at the end of the year. I'll go with Elko over Sarkisian in a big game. Last year, what happened in that one? That was the one that Texas won, actually. That was part of A&M's sort of late season slide. Don't know that I will play this one. Minus 120 seems reasonable for this team to go 9-3. I don't think they'll go worse than 8-4, so you get your money back if they go 8-4.
Yeah, I think they're a 9-win team because of the fact that they have 3 really tough road games. And even if they lose all those games, which I don't think they will, they'll win one of those really tough games. I think most of the schedule is pretty good. I think it's a good schedule for them. And the trick is going to be Marcel Reed, the quarterback. He was thrown out there earlier than he was supposed to. He's an exciting kid, but he's got to throw the ball more effectively than running the ball. And if he can do that, then Texas A&M has a shot to have maybe a special season. So I think, Mark, they might be the sleeper team that we thought they were going to be last year because they might be able to get better quarterback play this year.
Well, we both liked them real well last year, Greg. In fact, I think even the year before. And I think there's at some point I got to hop off that merry-go-round when I didn't deliver the goods twice. But I agree with you. I think they could be sneaky good this football season here. They got 1 year under their belt with Elko, and things could look up for this football program. Let's wrap it all up, guys, with Vanderbilt, usually the cellar dweller inside the Southeast Conference. They're expected perhaps to maybe be just that this year. Coming off a rare winning season last year, 7-win football season here. Tip of the hat, if you will, to Clark Lee. He did a great job with that football program here. But the last time Vanderbilt had back-to-back winning seasons, you got to go back to 2013 and 2014. Can he do it again this year? Lee was voted the SEC Coach of the Year for that stunning turnaround that he architected last football season here. And you got to love his quarterback. I'm going to let Greg talk about him a little bit more when he takes over here, but Greg knows a little bit more about him too, Diego Pavia, but I'll save that for Greg. Andy, what do you see happening with the Commodores this year?
Well, their win-loss total is sort of supports the thought that last year was just a really, really amazing season for them, although they did struggle with 3 straight losses to end the season before beating Georgia Tech in their bowl games. It's a season win total for Vandy this year is 5.5, and Coach Lee is very excited about this year's team. But, when you do what they did last year, you're playing a lot of revenge games where the opponent is seeking revenge. And for example, wins last year that are going to be avenging teams this year. Virginia Tech in week 2. That was when they started the season last year. They're going to have Alabama is playing with revenge. Kentucky is playing with revenge.
Wow.
Auburn is playing with revenge. That's a lot. I do like the quarterback. He had a sensational year last year, and probably will do the same this year. Can they get 6 wins? Well, Georgia State, Utah State, Georgia Southern, those are home games. Auburn and Kentucky, those are 2 avenging teams. Missouri, those are at home games. Road games are going to be very, very tough. At Virginia Tech, who's playing with revenge, at South Carolina, at Alabama, at Texas, at Tennessee. I have to think there's a little bit of a reversion. I think 5-7, with all that's going for them or against them with those revenge games. I think 5-7 would be a reasonable expectation. So I'd go under the 5.5, -160 on the under. So I can't play it at that price. If it goes to 5 at a more reasonable number, I'm willing to accept a push on that number. +140 if you think they can make it back to a bowl with 6 wins.
Yeah, this is going to be where they are going to win back-to-back 6-win seasons, if not 7. They are one of the more experienced teams in the country coming back from that big season. This is the best team this coach has had, Clark Lee. The defense was really strong last year for Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia, as you mentioned, Mark, this is the kid, in case anybody forgets, this is the kid that actually helped New Mexico State win 10 games, upset Auburn at Auburn as a big 25, 26-point dog, comes to Vanderbilt and gets them to the playoffs, upsets Alabama last year. This kid is like God on the campus.
He definitely is too, Greg, by the way.
Yeah. And trust me, because I already made a lot of money off this kid last year with these big lines. I'm going to make money again because they're going to be a little bit disrespected, and they're going to have a 6-7 win season this year.
Well, do you think, Greg, because of everything they did last year, being the hunted rather than the hunter, that would affect them at all this year?
I think the good thing is that they're being disrespected by the bookmakers are saying no bowl. Even Phil Steele has them at the best 2 or 3 teams in the conference. So I think for the most part, I still think there's a lot of one season. I don't think is going to be enough for these programs to go, because when you beat on somebody for so long and then they finally win a game against you, I think it's kind of ridiculous for that team to go, oh, we are going to get revenge on this team. Our 19-game win streak was snapped. So I think that's going to be a little bit hard for me to take that that's going to happen. So I don't think they're going to respect them as much as they should.
Well, guys, it was a great job touring the SEC on the show this week, the number 1 conference of all of college football this year, the big daddy of them all, although Big Ten might think different. I think if you polled all the big college fans, our Southeast Conference would win that poll. But next
maybe
week
we'll find out in week 1 with that Texas at Ohio State.
That's going to be a lot on the line.
Won't say anything about the conference, but it'll give one of those conferences bragging rights.
A lot of bragging rights. We're going to tour into the group of 5 teams starting next week with the American Athletic Conference. We'll start our group of 5, and we'll figure out which of those players and those rosters are going to likely be picked off next year by the Power 5 conference teams, because they almost always are. They're just a minor league serving ground for the big boys, but we're going to tear all that apart beginning next week. Until next week, I'm going to thank our extraordinaire panel for this particular show. Andy Iskoe from TheLogicalApproach.com in Las Vegas, the legend himself, Jim Feist from Las Vegas, and our producer extraordinaire, Greg DePalma. For the guys, this is Marc Lawrence. Until next week, reminding you to always to remember to bet with your head, not over it, and good luck as always.